What's up everyone, this is Scher talking, welcome back to my channel. In today's video we'll be talking about the Romancing Festival Joe's banner. This is a rerun banner that brings back plenty of limited styles. They are not UDXs, so this banner is usually normal. UDX banners just rerun less often. And we have the rerun of Byunei. This Byunei is important in the game, and if you don't have, you should summon for. Well, I will be starting by clicking on summon details. First of all, it's another banner with 5% hate, so there's no off banner here. You'll be summoning at least one of them if you get a double S drop. Well, the best character here is Byunei, like I said, but the second one is more about the characters that you have and what you're missing. But the first here is Joe. Let's talk about Joe. This Joe is more focused on a single target, although she starts with an AoE spell called El Nino. It's both heat and cold damage, 3 BP. The damage may not be so high, but it's good when you are using with the first Joe. First Joe is focused on AoE, so you can inherit El Nino so that she can keep using AoE all the time, after using a powerful attack. This one is not exactly so good for AoE since all the other spells are focused on single targets. Like Hybrid Magic, it's the same spell that you find on the first Joe, both heat and cold again. This time it's a power 6 VP, actually good enough. And the third one is Checkmate, 10 VP single target attack, that's actually triple S damage. The coast is pretty nice with 10 VP only, so you can use Checkmate on turn 1 and Hybrid Magic on turn 3 if you want. But if she gets stuck on turn 2 beyond, she may just keep using El Nino. And you see, starts with single target and uses AoE. The best way to use Joe is to have both versions of her and change the inheritance to, well, overwrite the different spells. With that said, Joe is good for boss fights because she has a first passive that 25% chance to reduce all damage to 0. It's an evasion stance, you even evade status ailments, and also recovers HP. This is the same one as you can find in Global X Rock. She also buffs all people in the party by 5% if they have cold attacks, and 5% if they have heat attacks. If they have both, that particular spell will receive 10%. You won't find this easily. There's actually Genryu, and Genryu takes 10% increase. You can use them together, the same way as you can use the first Joe together. It's the same passive. Then we have High Roller. This one gives her 15% increase at all times and 10% extra for single target spells. You see? Only for the second and third one. That means that you should inherit a single target spell from the first Joe, so they interchange spells. Well, you don't really need this Joe if you don't want, if you have way too many single target nukers for heat or cold, because the first one is more used because of the fast attack. It's cool to add El Nino, so that she can use AoE again on turn 2, but it's not exactly needed. Okay, so the second character should be Forneus, and Forneus is actually a pretty good character because he works in boss fights but also in farming scenarios. First attack is Aqua Lunge, and it's a pretty cheap attack, 0 BP, and he just does pierce and cold damage. The good thing is that you can use him in both types of content since Tidal Lure, it's his best attack, and it's also pierce and cold. After he uses his attack that has S power, he enters a defensive stance with counter. That means that every time he gets hit, he will receive damage. It's not an evasion stance, but he will counter with Maelstrom, one of the best attacks in the game for cold damage. The good thing is fast, so he will always go first before getting hit. And the Maelstrom, it's even stronger because of the way that he operates. Every time that he attacks, he gets a buff to his STR, and Maelstrom is actually better than STR. All of his skills are. So, let's check his passives. First one, every time that he attacks, he recovers and buffs himself for damage, STR. So every time that he gets to counter, he just keeps using Maelstrom. The second Maelstrom will be stronger, the third stronger, the fourth stronger, and that's how he finished some specific fights in 1 turn, sometimes in 3 turns, but usually in 1 turn. Also, the second passive, he reduces damage all the time, and then when he's not on full HP, he reduces it further, and also decreases the damage that he receives. It's amazing. And there's also for the 5, he gets 20% increase in damage. So yeah, for a counter unit, he's pretty amazing because of Tidal Lure. But even if you think about him only for normal damage, even not considering the counter, he's already good since he self-stacks STR, and heals. In long fights, Forneus works. If you have his human style, you can inherit the triple S nuke. In long fights, this version will be better, but the other one is more used for farming. Having both just adds utility and different cycle and builds. Then there is Byunei, and this Byunei here, like I said, it's an amazing character. She has Idle Dying. This is one of the best spells in the game. It's a 3BP spell with E power that has a chance to debuff agility. This is a very old character, so her intelligence and agility are pretty bad right now, but it's still enough to not miss either the damage or the chance to debuff. And debuffing agility helps you evade spell attacks and decrease the damage of martial arts attacks. So pretty useful in boss fights, and it's also AoE, so it works in just one boss or multiple boss. It's always something useful. Byunei also has 360 delta for damage. This one is actually pretty powerful for 8 BP coast. She can use twice in a 3-turn cycle for farming, not that you'll be using, but still. And Rising Earth is a fast attack slash damage again, that gives her guard up as well. Damage is still good up to this day, it's just that it's turn 2 and it's not as well useful anymore. There's too many fast attackers now, but if you have the second version of Byunei, she can use this on turn 1, that increases the volley. It's always good to chase Byunei because she's a meta character, so if you don't have the first Byunei, this one, you should summon 4. With passive, she has a 25% chance to negate damage. She buffs her intelligence on the start of a turn and has fired up 4. Yeah, she's a node unit. Nothing special, but the Aerodyne still makes it work. Now, the next character should be Princess White Rose. This one is not as important as the Halloween version of Princess White Rose, but will become better as the game evolves. I'll explain later. First of all, she has Light Swarm. This is a 2BP spell that does some damage, like all of her attacks. It's actually not so useful, even though the damage is good. You need chocolate balls with Princess White Rose. And you can find that on Halloween Princess White Rose or Valentine Princess White Rose. Because it's the best spell from her, and you don't want to keep doing damage since she's better used as a support character. So you make this a very good character. If you don't have the Halloween Princess White Rose, inherit Chocoballs makes Princess White Rose reliable again, since Valentine's has very low status. The second spell is pretty nice, Ray of Hope, but there's a problem. This is not limited anymore. You can find Ray of Hope in an S version of Princess White Rose on Robin's Cup. Everyone has access to that, but still good to have, but you are locking yourself a little here if you don't have chocolate balls. Then the third skill is No Rose. That's actually only used in Overdrive, I believe, because it has delay. It only heals herself, and there's a problem here. If you want to heal and the enemy attacks before you heal, you are dead. So, well, not as useful as it seems. But this version of White Rose is no because of her first passive that recovers all allies HP with a 37% chance. The value should be around 150. In very, very long fights, this helps. Let's say a fight that has 20 turns. You'll be healing once every 3 turns, and it will allow you to not use active skills to heal. But that's more used in evasion strategy that sometimes you get hit, or very tanky strategy where you reduce the damage by a lot, that small healing will help. And it's also better than the Halloween version of Princess White Rose that buffs will, because, well, when you are facing enemies that uses spell attacks, you want to use the Halloween version, and if you are facing enemies that only have physical attacks, you prefer this version. You know, because buffing will, if the enemy does not do magical damage or status ailments, makes no sense. So it's good to have both, even though I consider the Halloween version more important. But in the future, like I said, you get more value out of healing energy because we receive a formation that buffs love and charisma and also heals every turn. So sometimes you have double healings. Also, if you have the latest Matriarch that buffs will, love, dexterity, and charisma, you get higher value of the healing. So, pretty nice, but not exactly as essential as some people think. Then there is Apollo, and Apollo is actually not so powerful for damage. His first attack is Masamune. It's a single target slash and hit attack that it's actually good for the coast, and it will also be amplified in the future for 4 BP. Allows him to be used in single target content. And then the second one is called Meteor Swarm. This is an 8 PPC power attack. Well, not as high as we could achieve, but it brings Paralyze, and Apollo does have high intelligence and can inflict Paralyze without relying on a position that increases intelligence, because he self-buffs intelligence on the start of a turn. So a very good AoE Paralyze Inflictor. Then the third attack is Burst Nova. This one is stronger, it has a power, same blunt and heat again, but it's more used when you are trying to bring him for farming and he skips the first wave without attacking. Then he will just use Burst Nova instead of Meteor Swarm, but for farming. Besides that, I don't see much value of this. Apollo also has an AoE Poison attack with his S style. If you have, if you don't, you have to wait for a rerun. And he just has two different status elements to inflict. Okay, and Apollo is good because of his first passive. On the start of a turn, he buffs his intelligence by 15% and gets also a defense boost that should be 30% unless I'm wrong. So he decreases damage and keeps buffing his intelligence to reach higher values and paralyze better. So in Ward Tower now, this guy is super good. He's probably one of the best status inflictors for Ward Tower, although I still like Confusion as well. Confusion makes it even easier to handle situations since it seems to be less restricted. I mean, enemies are more likely to be confused than paralyzed, but they are also more likely to be petrified, although petrify also brings some problems. And it's always good to have at least one AoE inflictor of each type of status elements. If you don't, it will allow you to just face many different waves in Ward Tower. And he also gets an increased damage when he's not on full HP, and also reduces damage that he receives when he's not on full HP. So he's there for long fights. He sometimes may fail to inflict Paralyze and then receive damage without dying. So that's how he works. He's a little old, his damage is not so strong, but at least on the Paralyze department, he's still prime. Well, now I'll be talking about the best characters of this banner, and if you have gems, which ones you should be summoning. Well, let's click here on summon details. We have the best one being Byunei. Even though she's not the best character right now, if you have the third version of Byunei, inheriting Aerodyne makes it so much better. You will now be able to debuff agility and dexterity. If you don't have the last Byunei, you still should be summoning for this one, because it works by itself, just becomes better with versions that got released later. After Byunei, it's kind of a tie between Princess White Rose and Forneus. You should summon Forneus White Rose if you missed the Halloween one. Why? Because the Valentine's one has very low agility and intelligence for today's standards. She misses Choco Balls, so this is just an upgrade. If you have the Halloween version, you don't really need this one, but having just adds more utility for different strategies. So the third one should be Forneus, and if you didn't get Urpina, Forneus is much better. If you did get her, and you do have human Forneus, now you're adding better cycles and also different strategies for both bossing and farming. Then it should be Apollo. He just has very good intelligence to inflict Paralyze, and if you don't have any other Paralyze inflictor, Apollo is certainly one of the best units for Ward Tower. And the last one should be Joe. The reason is just that we get many different heat and cold attackers. We'll get versions of Joe in the future as well. And the first Joe is still better for the fast attack. You don't really need, although it's better to have El Nino. It's not exactly a necessity. That goes my opinions. This banner offers good value because, again, we don't have any off banner. Many times you're only summoning for 2 limited styles, now we have 5. But if you are a veteran and you are only missing 2, I should consider. I think you can skip if you want. In the anniversary, you may get a future banner that will just have a pity over multiple limited styles. We don't know when this will happen, if it will be on the anniversary or 2.5 anniversary. But if you miss the good characters here like Byunei and either Forneus or White Rose, you may have some good value. But if you are also a newcomer, summoning here is pretty nice. It's still better than summoning for Gustave banner or summoning for Alosis banner, since they offer less value overall. Okay, so that's my opinion. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please click here on the subscribe button if you still haven't, and I hope to see you soon in the next video. Bye.